Hello, everybody. This is Richard Swanborg from Design and Adorn, and I am going to be demonstrating for you how to do the Byzantine chainmail. I'm going to start out by going over how you open jump rings, how wide do you want to have them open, as well as how you interconnect the jump rings in order to link them together to make the Byzantine. The Byzantine is one of the classic chainmail patterns. It is very versatile. You use it in all kinds of different other chainmail projects. A couple of quick examples of Byzantine. The first one is right here. This is your classic Byzantine. You can see how it's got the V's pointed in opposite directions. And as you rotate it, it looks the same from both sides. This is where most people will start out in their Byzantine journey, where they can go ahead, you start from one end, you work your way to the other end. Another example of Byzantine is this one. The rick-rack is a variation on Byzantine. It is a lot of fun. You've got the slight Byzantines right here in the center. You can see them as they form that V. It's in multicolors. Really fun. Great projects there. So I'm going to start out by demonstrating opening the jump rings. The first thing you do, when you take a look at your jump rings, you will notice that they are partially open already. Right here, you can see where there is this slit right in between the jump ring, where the ends of the wire come together. This is a byproduct of how jump rings are manufactured. When they're manufactured, they start out by making a coil of wire, and then they take that coil and they saw right down the length of it, and it leaves you with this little overbite. So, in order to open a jump ring, you grab it on either side of the overbite. Oh, let me talk about my pliers quick. You'll notice I've got a flat nose and a bent nose. I'll talk a little bit more about the pliers in a few moments. But you grab it on either side of that slit, and you will rotate it. Hold one hand steady, does not matter which hand, and you rotate it with the other hand. Once you do that, you have it about 45 degrees open. That is plenty open for this technique. You can see here, it makes a nice letter V. You flip it upside down and it looks like the frame of an A. That's how you know you have it open nice. So a little bit about the pliers. You'll notice I've got two different types of pliers. It does not matter which pliers you use for this, whether it is two pairs of bent nose, two pairs of flat nose, or like I'm doing with a bent nose and a flat nose. The way that you can tell, though, that you are using the correct pliers is if you look on the inside of the plier needs to be smooth. Do not confuse the bent chain nose pliers with a bent needle nose pliers. Needle nose pliers will have teeth on the inside. Those teeth will mar your metal of whatever material of jump rings you're using, unless you're working in stainless steel, in which case, well, you're going to need to have a little bit of extra oomph for those. You'll also notice this white coating on the pliers. The white coating is tool magic. Tool magic is a wonderful tool. I love the way that you use it. You dip your pliers in, it coats the ends so that it doesn't scratch, doesn't mar the jump rings. It also keeps the jump rings from sliding in the jaw of your pliers so that when you're working with them, it isn't sliding around and trying to slip out. The last tool I have is this. It is a sharp nose tweezer. You can tell that it is very, very sharp point there. Comes down to a needle tip. I like to use it as a pointer. I will use it in order to get my Byzantine folded in the correct direction and hold it in place. It is just a very handy tool to have. It works almost like having an extra set of hands. So going back to how you open jump rings, if you've never opened a jump ring before, it is very important that you always grab it on both sides of that split. Always pick out which hand you're going to use to open, which hand is going to be held steady. If you're going and trying to wiggle both hands simultaneously, you won't have much luck. When you're holding it with your pliers, notice I'm using my bent nose. I'm holding it down as close to that split as I can, but I'm keeping the tips pointed away. The reason I keep my tips pointed away is because it gives me better control. If instead I had grabbed it with my tips and we're trying to open it using the tip, I can go ahead and wiggle it back and forth, and all I'm doing is I'm marring metal. I'm not actually opening. You have a lot more control when you hold it with the tips pointed outward. So I've got it. I'm holding it with my tips pointed outward. Now, it does not matter which direction I go, whether I move one hand away, one hand towards me. But because I'm limited with my workspace and the camera setup, I am going to take the hand that has the pointed tip, the needle, the bent chain nose pliers, and I am going to twist upwards towards me. The reason I do that is just because I have more room to work that way. It does not make a difference. I could have just as easily bent the flat nose away from me. I also could have bent the flat nose towards me. It really does not make a difference. But what you want to do is you want to open all of your jump rings before you get started. You want to open 2 of your color Bs. That is going to be your secondary color. And 4 of your color As. So you would need to open it up in that ratio. So starting out with 2 and 4, you're going to want probably more than that. 4 and 8, that can give you a little bit to get started. 6 and 12, there you're starting to get better. I personally like to recommend people start out with 10 and 20 though. With 10 rings of your color Bs and 20 rings of your color As, you'll have enough to get started without taking so much time just opening jump rings that you spend your entire time just opening jump rings. That can get really boring. We don't want to be bored. We want to have fun. So I'm going to keep opening my jump rings, grabbing it on both sides of that split, and I twist with one hand. Something very important that I just learned today is if you use lotion, because we're all washing our hands constantly these days, but if you are using lotion, you want to wait a little bit between putting your lotion on and doing your chainmail. I went ahead and had lotioned my hands just before this video because I knew that my hands were going to be on the video. And now my pliers are slipping a little bit from my hands. So if you are working with lotion, you do not want to have the lotion on your hands when you start. Another thing to watch out for is if you have long nails. Long nails can interfere and get in the way, especially when you move down to smaller and smaller jump rings. Take one hand, twist, and there we go. Now, I always like to start out with just a general ring as my starting point. It doesn't matter where you start. You can start it without a starting location. You can start it from your clasp. I usually have my students start out with their clasp. It just makes life a lot easier. You can see on this pattern here where it starts out with the clasp and then you can build onto the chain. But it does not make a big difference. I start out with my starting ring. The very first thing I'm going to do is I do one ring to my starting ring. Now if you were going to your clasp, this one ring would go through the small loop that attaches your clasp onto it, and we're going to close the jump ring. To close a jump ring, it is the reverse of opening it. We close the jump ring by taking one side of the jump ring, the other side of the jump ring, and we bring the tips together. As they pass, you might hear them pop. I don't know if you can hear that popping noise over the speaker, but you can see as I wiggle it back and forth, what I'm trying to do is get them to mate up as close as possible. I don't think that our camera is going to be able to actually catch just how close you can get this. But if you have just a little bit of an overbite or anything like that, then you wiggle it. You notice how my hand is just wiggling it back and forth. That is just getting everything aligned. If, when you go to close your jump ring, let me grab a spare one over off to the side. You're going to close, 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 and it's not popping and it's not moving. It's coming to a stop. What it means is that you have got it too tight. It is now overlapping. You cannot get it, push it through itself. Open it up again and just bring it a little bit further out until you've got it right there. The other thing that students will usually do is when they're closing a jump ring, they go ahead and close it, close it, close it, and oh my gosh, look at, you can see the mat beneath the jump ring right through that gap. So to fix the gap, we just wiggle it back and forth, and as I wiggle it, I bring the tips closer and closer together. The reason I'm wiggling is just to break the stress in the material so that I can get it all nice and tight. So those are my tips for closing jump rings. After you have your first jump ring in place, you've now got your starting ring. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more color B jump rings. Now this is unnecessary. You could go straight into the Byzantine, but with the count of jump rings that I have set up here, I am adding the extra set of jump rings just to get myself away from what would eventually be my clasp. Also because I'm going to be taking this ring off later on. I don't want to lose my Byzantine, so I need to start out with 2 color B jump rings. So color B, slide it back and forth. You can hear that popping noise. I'm wiggling it, getting it all nice and lined up. Very good. I move to the second color B jump rings. I set that one through the first one. You'll notice my one ring, it's connected at the hammer tone ring, my base ring, and then I've got my second color B, and my third color B is going next to the second color B. Notice how it is not connected to it in any way. I take that and I go ahead and close the ring, sliding it back and forth, pop, pop, pop. There we go. We've got our second color B. Once we have that, we can double check, make sure that everything looks good. You should have 2, count them 1, 2 rings hanging off of the first ring set up so that you can see that they are hanging loose. They are not connected to each other, but they are connected back to that first ring. Now, to do the Byzantine, we're going to be connecting 2 more rings through the first 2, and then 2 more rings through the new 2 rings that we connect. After we have connected those, we will do the fold and flip, and that's where you will see me using the tweezers in order to hold everything in place. I will do the first one all the way through, and then I will slowly walk step by step how you do the Byzantine. So, for the first Byzantine, I am going to hook through 1, 2 of my color B rings. These are those 2 color B rings from the beginning. I will go ahead and close that ring. Notice how I'm hitting myself. I have to back it back out, and now I pull it in, and there we go, nice and smooth. I take the second color B ring, or color A ring. I go through both color B rings, same 2 color B rings. Notice how I do not go through the color A ring though. After I've got my second color A ring going through 2 color B rings, I go ahead and close it. I'm also hitting with this one, so I back it out, wiggle it, back it, wiggle it, back it, wiggle it. There it goes, pop, pop. Slide it back and forth, get it nice and perfectly aligned, just like that. We've got now 1, 2 color A rings hanging from the 2 color B rings. Once we've got the 2 color A rings, 2 color B rings, we can go ahead and hook 2 more color B rings and go straight through the first 2 color B rings, or color A rings. So 2 color A rings through 2 color A rings. You can see 1, 2, just like that. As we go ahead and close it up, we go. What's that?
Push your hands forward. You keep pulling up frame.
Oh. My technical assistant here has said that I am pulling out of frame. So producer, okay. My producer here says that I am pulling out of frame as I am going to align these. You can hear that pop. See how it lines itself up. There we go. And there we go. We've now got the first of the second set of color A rings. 1, going through 2 other color A rings, and not going through any of the color B rings. We are going to connect the last, the 4th color A ring through the 2 color A rings. 1, 2. And we take it on both sides and close it up, just like the others. As it passes down, I bring it down, pass it back and forth. I've got a little bit of a gap there. I fix the gap, get it all lined up, looking at it from above, making sure everything lines up nicely, and there we go. So this is where we can start our Byzantine fold. Very important is before you start a Byzantine fold, you want to have your color A ring pair, second pair color A rings, 1, 2, and your color B rings, 1, 2. With that, we are going to start our Byzantine fold. We take the top pair of A rings. They are the ones that are the furthest away from our main ring, and we fold them backwards, 180 degrees. Notice we do not slide them all the way down so that they aren't sitting next. We want them sitting up near the top of the second set of color A rings. This is very important here. Notice how with the second set of color A rings, if I push upwards, it will actually push these color A rings out, letting them open up. So, with our folded color A rings pointed in the opposite direction, our top pair, we then separate the next set of color A rings, and that is where we're going to be connecting. Pay very close attention. A very common error is when people are trying to do it, they try to go through the color A rings that are connected to the color B rings. You should never have your color A ring connected to color B rings on both sides. It should just be the color B rings on one side. Your other set of color A rings, the ones that aren't connected to a color B ring, that's where we're going to connect to in order to make the Byzantine. So I am going to next grab 1 color B ring. You'll notice the reason I love using these sharp nosed tweezers so much is because it makes this channel, see how they spring open. They keep my fingers out of the way, but by springing open like that, they're holding everything in place. I can actually rotate from side to side, look at it from above, look at it from below even. And they're less likely to slide off. So I'm going to grab my color B ring. And I use the tweezers as a guide. By taking my color B ring, I slide upwards towards my body. That lets me hook the 2 color A rings and slide them right on off. I can go ahead and close it at this point and make sure that everything is lining up perfectly. You'll notice here, I just let my tweezers fall down to the work mat. It does not matter. The tweezers have done their job, so I don't need them to hang out there anymore. But if you take a look, you'll see the color B rings that I initially started out with are perpendicular to this new color B ring that I just added. That is how I know I put the color B ring in the correct location. If they were not sitting perpendicular, I would know that I had gone through the wrong color B rings or color A rings, and then I would have to take it back off and put it on again. That's really the only solution, is you take it off, you put it back on. If you have a mistake, you take it off, you put it back on. Now, once we have our first color B ring in its spot, we add a second color B ring. The nature of Byzantines are that you always have, well, you don't always, there is no hard set rule. But if you take a look here, you can see that the color B rings in yellow are in pairs. It doesn't have to be in pairs, but they are set in pairs so that people can easily do the technique. It gives it a nice aesthetic feel. It gives it a little bit more weight to the piece. You could also do it in triplicate. You could do it in singles. It does not make a difference how many color B rings you have, as long as you have a color B ring there. So we've now got our second color B ring. We link it through the same two color A rings as the first one, and then we close the color B ring. Whoop. My first color B ring wanted to get in on the action. As I take it, I bring it up. I left a little bit of a gap there, so I just wiggle it back and forth, listening for that pop or feeling that friction of the two rings, two sides of the ring sliding together. There we go. Our first Byzantine fold. Now, the next one I'm going to do a little bit slower so that people who are trying to follow along can go ahead and follow along. And then I will go ahead and start doing the Byzantine a bit faster again. Step 1. I always like to count out my rings before I get started. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 color A rings. 2 color B rings. I take the first color A ring, I set it right there in the 2 color B rings, and I close the ring. Very slowly, you can see as I line up my 2 sides of the ring, I bring them in contact, passing once, twice. You always have to overshoot it a little bit and then bring it back. That just breaks the stress, the pre-built stress in the ring, letting it line itself back up. I take my second color B ring, I go through this color A ring, I go through the same 2 color B rings, and I close it as well. Notice I am not crossing through any color A rings. I am only going through the 2 color B rings, and I promptly drop my piece. Jump rings do like to jump. Do not be alarmed. Do not stress out if your jump rings decide to jump around. They just like to jump around. As I bring it together, I slowly line it up. Sometimes I adjust my pliers, give myself a little bit more leverage. And there we go. Everything's lined up. So again, we have 2 color A rings, 1, 2, going through 2 color B rings. We do 2 more color A rings, one at a time. First, this color A ring. Grab it on both sides, pulling it together, lining it back up, and then the second color A ring. So again, going through the first pair of color A rings, lining everything up and closing. 2 rings through 2 rings. Now, if you are watching this after the live video has gone, you can go ahead and pause it to make sure that you've got everything correct. With our 2 rings going through 2 rings, we are now ready to do the Byzantine. To do the Byzantine, we take the top 2, those are the 2 rings that are on the front, that are the farthest away from our base ring. 1, 2, and we flip 1 to one side, 1 to the other. Very important that you do go to opposite sides. If you don't go to opposite sides, you're not going to have a Byzantine. You're going to be making something else. That's a great thing about chainmail though. Anytime you do something different, it isn't technically a mistake if you just keep repeating it. Once we have our 2 rings folded backwards, we can flip it, we can keep it the same, but we want to separate out those next 2 rings, the ones that are connected to the color B rings. We go ahead and go through our color A rings that got folded back the first time. Double check. You can use the tweezers. You can look at it, make sure that everything is pointed in the correct direction, that your tweezers are not going through the color A rings that are connected to the color B rings, that they're sitting there perpendicular. You'll notice how my tweezers are going perpendicular to those color B rings. You can even lift up on them and you can see, whoopsie, fold it back, separate. If you lift up, you can even see it taking that Byzantine shape. Next, we put color B right there, right where the tweezers were located. So I'll again show that. So tweezers are here. I can hold the tweezers far at the bottom if I want. It does not make a difference. And I just slide it off. With it hooked, I just go ahead and grab the color B on both sides, closing it up. And because my color B rings like to travel in pairs, I take a second color B ring and I follow it along the same route as the first. Now, if you're having trouble getting that second B ring into place or seeing where it goes, you can take your tweezers and use them again as a guide. If you're going to use your tweezers and work from the tweezer, from your hand up towards the tip of the tweezer, I always recommend putting a finger on it so that it will prevent you from sliding your piece off. Give it a bump. You'll notice how I'm now right here by my finger, but I can hook it right on through and slide it off when I'm finally ready. With everything now out of the way, I go ahead and close my color B ring. So that's all there really is to Byzantine. Once you have 2 Byzantine folds in place, you can take a look at it. You can see these V's pointed in opposite directions, almost like an arrow that is double-sided, pointing away from the center 2 color B rings. Or you can look at it this way. If you rotate it 90 degrees, you've got your two arrows pointed inwards towards the center ring. Next, I'm going to go ahead and start building a little segment of Byzantine so that you can watch. I will talk through each step as I go, but I will not be going through the slow, methodical process that I've done so far. Whoopsie. And I drop a jump ring on the floor. Jump rings will jump. That's why I have a couple of spares. I only have the spares because I am teaching the class. I didn't set up the spares if I were doing this on my own for my own project because, well, I'd be intentionally using all of my jump rings. Starting out, we take a color A ring, go through the two color B rings, and we close the color B ring. We take a second color A ring, we go through the same two color B rings, and we close the color A ring. We take a third color A ring. This one goes through both color A rings, and we close the color A ring. We take a fourth color A ring. We go through the two first color A rings. That's color A ring 1, color A ring 2, and we close the color A ring. With 1, 2, 3, 4, we go ahead and fold the two top color A rings back. We use our tweezers to separate those next color A rings and go through the top color A rings, the ones that were folded backwards. Notice how I'm using a very light touch. I'm not pinching it closed. I'm trying to let the tweezers spring open. It is that springing open of the tweezers that hold things in place. If you pinch the tweezers, you can see how the piece will just slide right on off. But if you hold it very gently and let them spring open, you can then use them as a guide for your first color B ring. Color B ring number 1, and closed, and color B ring number 2, following the number 1 B ring, and we go ahead and close it. Just like that. Now, something that does happen sometimes, if you take a look here, it seemed as though I had done something incorrect. I had a jump ring that felt like it was stuck underneath another jump ring. It was not, in fact, stuck. All I needed to do was give it a little snug tug, and it popped right out. It's just one of those little things that can happen that could throw you off when you're working on it your first time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. We have color A ring through two color B rings. Closing the color A ring. The second color A ring through the same two color B rings. Closing the color A ring. The third color A ring goes through the first two color A rings. Closing the color A ring. And the fourth color A ring going through the two color A rings. Closing the color A ring. Whoop, this one doesn't like it. Spot. There we go. Everything lines up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm now ready to go. Flip one to one side, one to the other side. Take my tweezers, separate, stab between the two. Gently grab it, hook it, drop the tweezers, grab my jump ring on both sides. And as this keeps getting longer, I have to make sure that I hold it down low enough so that it remains in focus. There we go. And take my second color B ring, goes through the same two color A rings. Very good. There we've got 4 Byzantine folds. You can see them nice and lined up. For my next one, I'm going to show a common mistake that people make when doing their Byzantine. I go through with my first color A ring through the 2 color B rings. Just like normal. Color A ring through color B rings. That's the second color A ring. Just like normal. Color A ring through 2 color A rings. Just like normal. And a color A ring through 2 color A rings. Just like normal. Then they fold it backwards, like you usually do. And then they go through 2 color A rings. But when they go through the 2 color A rings, they go through the wrong 2 color A rings. And before I even close this, you can already see something is off because I've now got these 2 color A rings hanging off on the side. They're just flapping around like a pair of elephant ears. If I let go, you can see how it goes color A, color B, color A. So I know that I put it in the wrong spot. Ooh, and now I have to find out where I left my, there it is, where that gap is located. So if it looks like you've got a pair of Dumbo elephant ears hanging off the side of your Byzantine, it probably means that you didn't go through the correct color A rings. And instead, you went through these upper 2 color A rings after folding it backwards, the ones that are connected to your other color B rings. If instead, you fold them out of the way, we use our tweezers, we can double check. We use our color B ring, we can hook, and we close our color B ring. We take a second color B ring and we close the other color B ring. There we go. Next, we're going to do another common error with the Byzantine. We go ahead and it starts out same as usual. A color A ring through 2 color Bs. A second color A ring. But rather than going through the 2 color Bs, it crosses the other A as well. When it crosses, you can see how it has this twist. It stands out almost right away that something is wrong here. So, to fix that, you just reopen the jump ring, slide it off, slide it back on, and then close the jump ring back up. Now it can be done again when you're adding not your third jump ring, but your fourth jump ring. If you accidentally cross through your third jump ring, you will get that same cross look. An alternative to that, though, is occasionally you'll miss one of the jump rings entirely, and then you'll end up with something that looks like this. Notice how when you go to pull up on it to see your two rings going through two rings, they don't lay nice and snug against each other. They're trying to separate. And it's because this ring here only went through one ring. To fix that, we just reopen the ring, slide it out, slide it back in. We're going through the two jump rings. We close the ring, and there we go. We fold it backwards. We go through it with the tweezers. We grab our two color B rings. We line everything up and slide it right on off. Color B, close one. Color B, close two. For the final one, with my final set of rings, as I'm approaching the end, what you can do is if you find that you are approaching the end and you're like, this is not long enough, open more jump rings. Just open a few more jump rings, and you can go ahead and add extra length. So we're going to take our first color A, go through our two color Bs, close it, take our second color A, go through our two color Bs, close it. We're going to take our first color B and close it, and you immediately notice, oh wait, that's not right. It's supposed to be a color A. It is always done 4 color A's for every 2 color B's. So, color B and our fourth color B. Our fourth color A. 1, 2, 3, 4 color A's. We fold them backwards. You may not have seen just how quick you can do that. Once you start really getting a rhythm going, you can start doing this really fast. Fold them backwards, stab through with our tweezers. Now the tweezers are only a crutch. Once you get really experienced with chainmail, you don't need the tweezers anymore. But they are a great tool for starting out. So. Now if you are doing it freehand, this is one of the most common mistakes to watch out for. That is less likely with the tweezers, because the tweezers work as your guide. It's very easy to miss on your first one. Once you add your second one though, you may notice that, oh hey, I've got this guy coming out to the side. If it's coming out to the side like this, you're not doing a Byzantine. This is a different technique. This is not the technique we're working on. To fix this, you can go ahead, grab the ring, open it up, pull it off, and put it right back on. Just like that. Now, we do have, for those of you who want to learn Byzantine, we have some outstanding Byzantine kits available. we have the We've Got Maille Byzantine Kit.
You keep talking, I'm just adjusting your screen.
Okay. We got the We've Got Maille. It comes in a ton of fun colors. Now, these are small jump rings. The smaller the jump ring, the more challenging it will be. We've Got Maille has the smaller jump rings for the standard Byzantine kit. If you are experienced with doing chainmail, you may want to get this because you've already got experience with working with jump rings. 1, 2, 3, and here's number 4. I love the rainbow color bracelets. Although my personal favorite is this guy. It is called the Caramel Latte. I don't know why, I just really like the earth tones. They come in 5 different colors. These are available on our website. In addition to the We've Got Maille Byzantine, we also have Hyperlinks Byzantine kits. They too have a rainbow one. They come in 6 different colors. We only have samples for the first 3 colors. The other remaining colors, you've got a silver color, and I cannot remember the other 2 off the top of my head. I apologize for that. But you'll notice with the larger jump rings, that can make this a little bit easier. But the We've Got Maille kit is a little bit tighter aspect ratio. And what that means is the size of the ring to the size of the hole is your aspect ratio. Let me quickly close this. Notice, these 2 rings have the same size wire, but different sizes of holes. This one has a much larger aspect ratio versus this one. There are more techniques that you can do with the larger aspect ratio than there are with the little aspect ratio. You don't need to know a lot of details about aspect ratio at this point. Most jump rings can be used to do Byzantine. Now the third and final type of kits. So we have the Hyperlink Byzantine kits. We've got the We've Got Maille Byzantine kit. This is my favorite though. It is the Rick Rack. In the Rick Rack, the Byzantine is done sideways. And my favorite one is this one. So, the honey butter, I think it's called. But you can see with the Rick Rack, where'd my tweezers go? You've got that same Byzantine shape, but rather than the Byzantine running down the length, the Byzantine is running to the sides. And this is our We've Got Maille Rick Rack kits that we carry. You can see it, you've got the Byzantine, you've got these extra rings up at the top, which are then linked together along the length of it. And it is all a lot of fun. So I hope that everybody enjoyed this session. I hope that you can get some of our kits, practice doing the chainmail, and I look forward to seeing what projects you all come up with when we get through all of this. Have fun, happy beading, and I hope you stay well.